Hi, Greg.
Hello, Hugh.
This is my dead moon video. The moon is dead tonight. It's in Virgo, just like my wife. She was a Virgo, and she was dismembered and murdered in Mossheim, Tennessee, on a Civil War ranch. And the topic of tonight's video is going to be about things like I was a publisher, and I had a trademark all the way back in can you read that at all?
Yeah, it's a little blurry here.
Well, it's my trademark for bottom line. And the date, can you read the date?
Mm, no, I think it says 67.
Yeah, it's 1967, December 67. And I hired Weiner and Associates to protect this, Clinton's buddy, and they didn't protect it. They stole the trademark all over the globe. And DuPont and McMahon, the people that made the WWF, stole my trademark when I was about 15 with Claire Cummins, the Cummins diesel engine. And then my family made the Fuller transmission. And DuPont would paint the vans and milk trucks and buses that were my family's patent. And DuPont was he stole my trademark, bottom line, worldwide. And on the day they stole it, worldwide, and you can see I actually signed this and with an attorney, and it was my real trademark. Webster funded my school system more and consolidated. He put it in the dictionary. And get this, Greg, on the day DuPont and Claire Cummins stole my trademark, he had 2,500 American corporations start using it all on the same day. And
Yeah, and we see lists of them. You can just Google bottom line, and there's just an endless list of bottom lines
yeah, and
now.
that's my stolen trademark. I created the word back in around 1964, gave it to my band, and then we played at all the high schools and the colleges in Michigan. Chicago, we were playing at Great Lakes Naval Base in Chicago, and I was playing in Canada and down in Florida, and I was on the radio, and uh, I believe they murdered Jimmy Hoffa, my family member, because he was on all the talk shows when they stole my trademark, and he knew they had stolen my trademark all over the globe. And I believe that's why they murdered him. It had nothing to do with him going on another strike. It had to do with them stealing my federal license. And when they stole my federal license, the U.S. military should have protected it, but they failed to do that. And then they blew up the receipts in my civil rights case in the Twin Towers. And you know all of this, but other people don't. And then here's me on the front page of the Chicago Tribune when I was about 15. Uh, and Kennedy was starting his speeches off, to you Tribune publishers. And here's bottom line in a Warren High School, Warren Consolidated, on Mound and Arden in Warren, Michigan. And here's me with Jim Mars just before he was murdered. I had handed him my stolen Social Security licenses, IRS licenses, and he was looking into them when they murdered him.
Mm-hmm.
Then here's George Bush on 9/11. My girlfriend put him in that kindergarten class down in Florida. I lived in Florida. Doug Mills is my family member, my uncle, and he was filming George Bush on 9/11 when George Bush said my name. And none of this is coincidence. Um, In Canada, here's the performing rights organization in Canada, see Canada. And then I use Stationers Hall in London. And then you can see here, this is ASCAP. And it says to all you publisher members, can you read that?
Yeah.
All you publisher members.
Yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
it's right to me from ASCAP, New York. So I was a real publisher. And then a corporation named Dynamic Graphics was allowing me to use their artwork on my music covers, and see Dynamic Graphics. And for my publishing and advertising company, I learned advertising from Business Week magazine. And then here I am. This is me, who's who in advertising back in the 60s. And that's my bios, and that's in any library on earth. And then here's my bottom line publishing agreement for bottom line publishing, ASCAP, New York. And then here's my uncle, Admiral Byrd, and he was murdered by Eisenhower and Truman. He came back from a voyage on the Pacific Ocean, and he confronted them about selling guns for money from World War II and getting money and drugs in return and selling the drugs on the streets, just like they were doing when Noriega was doing it. And then this is my Aunt Gardner. This is Willie Gardner's chalk drawing, and Willie Gardner is someone who really knows me. He used to come to Michigan, say hi to me all the time. And Alex Jones used this Gardner chalk drawing via Cook, and Cook was my only living second wife's family is Cook. And then, my baby's pictures were taken by George Towers and Eastman Kodak on the Rogue River, on the Rogue in Detroit. And they put 4-4 on all my baby pictures. And Eastman Kodak, this is my federal IRS number. So I'm a real publisher with a federal IRS number. My name is Hugh Squire. And this is July 63 when my little sister.
I see it.
Yeah, and that's Father McDonald. And I made a first confession to him and told him that 5 governors were raping me in Osborne's basement. And he made me get on my knees and do penitence because I was the bad little 4-year-old. And then here's my mother with her family, the Brown family. See, Mrs. Arthur Brown honored her, Herbert Brown of New Baltimore. And my mother was there with Reed and Patsy, Reva, Melba, Emil Casa, and the Brown family. And there's my mother, Dora Harris, at the bottom of New Haven. And New Haven is where they buried Hoffa. And Hoffa's my family member. His family married into the Harris family just before they murdered him. And I really believe they murdered him because they had stolen $3 trillion from me and quite a few billion from my mother. They stole the patents for buses, vans, and milk trucks from my mother's family. And then they gave the world Ruby Ridge with this guy back in Pennsylvania in the 80s, not the 90s. They've changed the dates. And then I was publishing people like this.
Yeah.
You can see. And then I was on 9/11, I was publishing Brian Ford and Ronnie Carmel from Iraq. As they told the world, the Iraqis blew up the Twin Towers, and that was one great big lie from George Bush. And
Yeah, they blamed the guy in that band for funding the terrorists.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
and now they blame this guy right here, um, him, and he was from Iraq, and his father was a policeman in Iraq, and they were both Christians. That's why they moved to the United States, and they got a big business loan, and they bought fast forward video stores. And George Bush told the world that this family on 9/11 funded the Muslims, and he was 17 years old at the time. Big lie, big lie.
Yeah,
And
yeah, unreal.
I was publishing him with the Ford family, Brian Ford. And then you can see here, this is 1953, my baby pictures. And that's Eastman Kodak. That's John Eastman's family. And they put a 4-2 on all my pictures taken by George Towers. And they planned 9/11. And we're going to do a video on the next full moon about them planning 9/11. And you're going to write another chapter for the book. And you can see this is a photo by George Towers.
Yeah.
On the day I was born, Eastman and Towers, the Twin Towers weren't even built yet. And they decided to steal my publishing company, and that's me playing at IROC for Ted Nugent. And here's a bigger blow up, and you can see it's 1956, just before I was raped, and this is patented by Eastman Kodak Company, and they did all this because I'm related to the presidents on U.S. money. And then Nasty, the band that Ronnie Carmel was in, they had a band, and this was their first album, Society's Knocking, and they were playing These Are the People, and you see here Don Gatzmer, Ronnie Carmel, Brian Ford, and I was publishing them.
Yeah.
And that's when Bush lied and told you Muslims were blowing up the Twin Towers. The Twin Towers actually held my receipts for Bottom Line all over the globe. And I had a civil rights case inside. And then here's Nasty at IROC, and IROC is owned by Ted Nugent. And Ted Nugent, he's been on Alex Jones' show thousands of times.
That's why he is in the position he's in. Okay, that's a DEA agent and everything.
But he won't admit I exist. And then here's me with Giorgio Tsoukalos. When they murdered my family member, Admiral Byrd, Truman and Eisenhower put himself on the Mercury Dime, and that's Mercury Dime is Freddie Mercury from Queen. And I was tortured and raped by 5 gay governors in 1957 with Camille Sirhan and my own twin. They beat my twin to death at the age of 4, dumped his body in Pennsylvania. And all of this is truth. Mm-hmm. This is my aunt, Ava Gardner, my great aunt. And she married Mickey Rooney and Frank Sinatra. Here I am with another famous guy at GE, and I made X-ray machines for GE as 9/11 happened. And then here's another UFO guy, and here's Nick Pope. He uses my trademark in his movies, Bottom Line. And nobody backs me with my truth of 9/11. And the reason nobody backs me, and then here's the Byrd family. You see the Todd Byrd.
Yeah.
He left me this note when my wife Victoria was murdered Halloween Eve. And he's in this photo. There's so many people. You can't tell. Mills is up here and Byrd is up here. And this is from when I was a little kid. I'm one of these little kids down here in the front row, probably this one. And then the Christie family from London is there. And that's the guy running to be president, a guy from Canada and London. And then you know, um, Eastman Kodak, this is my family back in 1946. And John Eastman and George Towers were taking the pictures of my grandmother's family. And you can see that's George Towers
Yep.
in Detroit. And and that was 1946. Eastman and them, they've taken pictures of me all my life. And then I went to Warner School, which became Warner Brothers via Dr. Warner and his family. And then the Cook family gave me a job, and I was a partner. I was a 50% owner of this Gospel Notes magazine as they murdered my wives and kids in Tennessee in the Bible Belt. And Cook didn't give me a paycheck for 2 years because they had murdered my attorney. And they murdered my attorney on his way to the district attorney's office to file Victoria's murder charges. The moon is in Virgo tonight, and Victoria was a Virgo. So that's why I'm doing the Dead Moon video tonight. And then here I am in Bottom Line Advertising and Publishing. Can you read it?
Yeah,
And
I
then,
think so.
and then this is Britain. And this is a song in Britain. And the royalties I received for that song in Britain. And I was all over the globe. I was in 264 countries on the day they stole my trademark. And at that point, just for the trademark, the American military should have stepped in, but the presidents told them not to because the presidents were murdering my family and stealing my trademark.
Right.
And then here I am, another letter from Morton Gould at ASCAP. And you can see it's right to Hugh Esquire, Bottom Line. See it?
Yeah.
I'm not lying about anything. And this is me playing at the Shelby Inn solo. And when they stole my name and trademark, I called myself Billy Craig because Huey Lewis's real name is Billy, and Billy Squire, his real name is Craig. And they used names to steal my name in every country on earth, as they stole my federal IRS licenses, my name, and my how do you say it?
Your tax licenses, tax receipts.
My tax license and my federal ASCAP and BMI license, that came from Foley Federal Court. And then after 9/11, they told you Foley was beheaded, and that's all BS. This is all BS. He was beheaded by the Americans in a studio. Right. And then this is me back in the 60s, and I would send this advertisement. You can see this is the Bottom Line, Huey Squire Company, and that was my phone number back then. And you can see it's Bottom Line.
Yeah.
And that was my trademark. And then here I am doing international newspaper here. Bottom Line, Huey Squire, Bottom Line Advertising Publishing. I was doing newspaper advertising all over the globe. And then here's same thing, federal. You can see Bottom Line, Huey Squire, Bottom Line. It's my federal IRS. I blocked out the number. It's already been stolen enough. And then here's Bottom Line at Harry Fox in New York. And that's the song that was in the Joker movie, Sending the Clowns. And that song is worth well over $300 million. And that was just one of 28,000 songs I own that 2,500 American corporations stole all over the world when they stole my name and trademark. And they've spent my entire life after stealing my trademark and my name in every country on earth. These 2,500 American corporations hide me in all news. They pretend like I don't exist as they murdered my whole family 5 times, stealing property, trademarks, patents, and money from me. And you know, Greg, I was a top eBay seller. See, eBay, congratulations, you've achieved eBay top rated seller status. I had a computer business online through eBay. So they congratulated me. And on the day I received this, Major Tom Garrett and Barbara Walters' family murdered my wife, Victoria, in Johnson City. And they murdered my attorney on his way to the district attorney's office. And then he put up a whole bunch of fake reports on eBay, and he destroyed my top seller status. And that was my only income because Victoria had muscular dystrophy. I had to carry her 40 to 60 times a day out of her wheelchair and feed her and make her. And my only income was this computer business I started on eBay. And they destroyed that. And then Cook gave me the Gospel Notes magazine. And you can see here, this is Harry Fox Agency in New York writing to me. See, Huey Squire, bottom line advertising. And this is before Fox News existed. And this is why Rupert Murdoch at Fox, when you and I make videos like this, he copyrights them and then he pulls them off the internet.
Right.
It's because I was Fox Entertainment before Fox News existed. This is before anybody had computers. And see, that's Arthur Volando in New York, right to my business. And I owned every contract on earth that mattered through Fox Entertainment and through my ASCAP license. That was 28,000 worldwide entertainment contracts with people like Burt Reynolds, Dolly Parton, Ted Nugent, Bob Seger, anybody that belonged in ASCAP got their royalties via my license.
Yeah, I get it.
And there isn't one single person who stands up and says, yeah, this guy's telling the truth. After my whole family's been murdered 5 times. And I know this is because 2,500 corporations stole my trademark worldwide on the same day with DuPont and Claire Cummins as they murdered Hoffa and murdered my first wife Christmas Day. Those companies employed over 600,000 Americans. And those 600,000 Americans talk behind my back, won't admit I exist, and they've hidden the murder of 4 of my wives and my mother's entire family. My mother's family built Hollywood. And then here's the House of Representatives. Here's the United States Senate. And this is right to Huey Squire, bottom line. And this is the United States Commission on Civil Rights. Can you read that? United States Commission on Civil Rights?
Yeah.
Right in Washington, D.C., in the Pentagon office, they blew up. And that was a civil rights case against the family that built the Pentagon because they had stolen my trademark and helped lie to a judge in Oakland County, Michigan, as my first wife was murdered. And when my wife was murdered, her family was the cover girl on Maybelline magazine. And that's when Mae Musk took over the magazine. So Elon Musk's mother had a hand in murdering my wife Christmas Day. And I don't think these things. I know these things, but they hide me and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then lately, Denzel Washington has been in the news, and my secretary at IBM, back when my father-in-law gave Bill Gates software to make his first Microsoft computer, Joe Jacobs was my father-in-law, and they murdered his stepdaughter also in 2017 as they shot Lavoy Finicum. And they hide all these murders. They dismembered her, they removed her leg, and then they murdered her as they let the Bundys out of jail. This is Anthionetta Washington, and you know this exists, Greg. See it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's Denzel Washington's family, and her two brothers were linebackers for the Detroit Lions and the Chicago football team,
Right.
the Washington brothers. So I really know all these people, and that's a song I wrote for Anthionetta Washington because she was my friend and my secretary at IBM.
One of several thousand songs you wrote, I believe.
Yeah, I wrote about 2,000 of them. See the ASCAP survey and your royalties. Well, I collected the royalties and distributed the checks. This is the National Public Television Agreement. I'm really who I say I am, and I want people to know this. Major Tom Garrett and Barbara Walters' family murdered my wife, Victoria, on the Manning Ranch. And the Manning family co-created the JFIK archives, which are a complete bullshit story. And everybody in the archives is somebody from my neighborhood in Warren, Michigan.
Why they call it the Warren Report.
Covering up. And my friend at Warren High, Russell, the Russell family, appointed Garrison, my alumni in Warren Consolidated School System. I was a teacher with Garrison. And then Manning sold me the Civil War ranch where they murdered two of my wives. Major Tom Garrett, who wasn't in the military, he was a journalist in the White House under Obama. He and Obama and Clinton murdered Victoria and murdered my attorney. And then they had Cook come and offer me a ministry, a partnership in a ministry. And then he didn't pay me for 2 years after they murdered my attorney. So I couldn't afford to hire a new attorney because I never got a paycheck. And this is my only living wife's family. And her family murdered Jimmy Hoffa. This is Madonna's friend, Marie from Graceland, as they murdered my friend Oscar Tyler Moore's wife. He found her in a dumpster at the same time I found Victoria 700 miles away on the others in East Tennessee.
Yeah.
Dismembered and murdered. Marie came and lived with me, and then Madonna sent the Locrecchio family into my home and had them call from all over the country and tell the police I murdered Marie. And I had the police themselves put Marie on a plane and fly her to California.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, they SWAT teamed it, but the Locrecchio family is the mafia family that made Madonna.
Right. And Madonna's from close to where you grew up too, there in Michigan.
Rochester, Michigan is where she used to eat.
Yeah.
And the Locrecchio family went to kindergarten with me. I know all of them. And then I was her publisher when I got an ASCAP publishing license. And none of these people, all they do is murder my wives and hide the money they've stolen from my life. And this theft is every country on earth. It's 264 countries. And then they had to hide the theft in the Twin Towers. And that's exactly what they did. And Muslims did not do this.
Right.
Americans, Israel, and London and Germany and France did this. And I watched them do it. And I'm the publisher they screwed over. And I'm still alive. They've tried to kill me dozens of times, and I'm still here. You know, I've been stabbed, shot at, poisoned, um, hit over the head with hammers, and I'm still here. I lived through all the hits on my
Yep.
life since I stopped the illegal Senate drug and gun trade on a farm Donald Trump's tax attorney stole to me, Mr. Mazar. And as soon as I moved onto that farm, there were little kids, 3, 7, and 12, overdosed in hospitals from LSD, cocaine, heroin. And a pharmacist in Utica, Michigan, named Hank, was heading this drug dealer trade for the Senate. I stopped it.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing I know, the Haiduka Marine Corps from Alaska went to Grenada and killed 3,000 people that afternoon.
Wow.
Said they stopped it, but then they came and put me in jail because I stopped the senator's illegal gun and drug trade.
Yeah.
They put me in jail, and they made all the dealers living on that property I bought. They made movie stars
Mm-hmm.
out of them. And this is not lies. This is true.
I know. Yeah.
And they did the same thing to Admiral Byrd when Eisenhower killed Admiral Byrd, put himself on the dime, took over Freddie Mercury's place. Mercury was the dime. Eisenhower murdered my Uncle Byrd, and then when him and Truman murdered Byrd because he confronted him about the illegal guns and drugs, they gave the world a fake diary and hid his murder behind UFOs and aliens.
Yep.
And you can see I know all the alien people, and none of them will say my truth. And it's true. Giorgio and Jim Mars started to look into it, and they murdered him.
Mm-hmm.
They killed him with dialysis, and then they told the world kidney dialysis. And then my torture was always on my knees, wasn't it, Greg?
As a kid, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Kidney dialysis. That's how they murdered Jim Mars. They told the world he had a heart attack, but dialysis murdered him.
Mm-hmm.
And when I met him, there was nothing wrong with his kidneys. They murdered him. As I stopped by Rand Paul's house when that doctor sucker punched Rand Paul,
Yeah.
I was there at his house. I got to Indiana where they murdered 2 of my kids and 3 in Michigan on the same day.
Mm-hmm.
They murdered Jim Mars as I sat in the hospital, unable to wake up because that same person that sucker punched Rand Paul gave me a Mickey, and I couldn't wake up for 3-4 weeks. And I'm telling you the truth. And I really know all these people. So this is my dead moon video. And they murdered my wife, Victoria, in a wheelchair. They cut her ears off and slit her throat Halloween Day after torturing her for 35 days. Tom Garrett at CBS and the Walters family at CBS did this. And then they gave Tom Garrett in the White House a job on the takeout, making fun of me. And I'm the truth of Kennedy's murder. I'm the truth of Hoffa's murder. Tim McVeigh and John Nichols lived next door to me for 30 years. I moved out to California, and Nichols' daughter, who was married to Chapman, and Chapman murdered John Lennon at the Dakota, lived next door to me after I moved in here. These are not coincidences.
Definitely not. And there's
and
a lot more of them.
All media is hiding me. And the very people who kidnapped me run the FBI sex crime division.
Right.
In 1957, Osborne kidnapped me, tortured, raped me, and beat my twin to death. And those people are the real Oakland County child killers. Mm-hmm. And who did we talk about? What was the name of the state policeman giving Clinton hookers?
Perry and Patterson, I think,
yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
Perry is my only living wife, the family that murdered Jimmy Hoffa. And Patterson is L. Brooks Patterson, and I'm related to Brooks. Bob Hope took Bobby Brooks to Vietnam to entertain the troops, and Bobby Brooks lived with me. She was one of the drug dealers. And then Patterson, L. Brooks Patterson's family was giving prostitutes to Bill Clinton while he was governor of what state?
Arkansas.
Oh, isn't that interesting? And my family wrote the Bible, and I'm Squire, and that's Arkansas, A-S. And this is how they've hidden me since the day I was born. Patterson, Peters, Graham, Barr, Donald Trump's attorneys, his tax attorneys.
Yep.
These are mobsters, and they murdered my twin, kidnapped me as they murdered Admiral Byrd, gave the world a fake diary, and here I am telling everybody the truth. And
right.
People think I'm crazy, and I'm saying truth.
Right.
I just had a girl today ask me how much I'm drinking. How long have you known me, Greg?
These people are unreal on just how ignorant they are of how the world actually
she
works.
asked me what kind of drugs I'm doing and how much I drink every day.
And if I had to guess, she probably actually does drugs and drinks.
And you know, you already
and you
know,
don't.
You already know I don't drink and I don't
right.
do drugs. I've been completely drug and alcohol free since I was 19 years old. And you know this.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable how these people hide me.
Yeah. Yeah, I know
because almost 1 million people made a living off of my stolen trademark. They tell everybody behind my back that I'm the bad guy. I'm the drug dealer. I'm the alcoholic. Because they're hiding. Yeah. They're hiding all the money they stole from me.
Exactly, yeah.
And they hide me in all media. The FBI detained me for Hoffa's murder. I bought Miller a house. Miller wrote a book, and the FBI claims they found a spot of Hoffa's blood in Miller's house, a house I bought for Miller. As Tony Tocco and Miller worked for my business, and I rented the Carousel, which was Jack Ruby's trademark.
Yeah.
In Michigan. And Tony Tocco and Miller worked for me. And on the day Hoffa died, he wasn't anywhere in sight. I was with Hoffa in the morning, and my mother-in-law was with Hoffa that night. My mother-in-law's family murdered Jimmy Hoffa because they had stolen my trademark all over the globe. $3 trillion. And they knew Hoffa was on all the talk shows. They didn't want to be exposed, so they murdered him.
Yeah.
And this is the real truth. That same family had a hand in murdering the Kennedy family. And they were raping me. That woman, my mother-in-law with Hoffa, she was in her 50s and I was 17 years old, and she was asking me for sex. After I married her daughter, who was 12 years older than me. And her own family members, Perry and Cook, were coming to me for sex after they married my first wife's brother, who was a DI at Fort Knox during Vietnam. She came to me for sex, Cook and Perry. And then the National Guard, just like at Kent State, they covered me up at Kent State as they stole my trademark. I grew up with Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. Crosby lived across the street on Isabel Street from the first house I ever owned. And I built the house myself. The understanding is they covered up 4 dead in Ohio with the National Guard. When they murdered Terry and Victoria on the Manning Ranch, the National Guard showed up with Cook and Perry. And my wife's murder was never put in the news.
I know it. Yeah.
I've got 4 murdered, dismembered, murdered wives on holidays, and none of the murders are in the news. I had 5 kids murdered in 2 states as I sat in L. Brooks Patterson's office in 2018, 2017, just before he died. I was sitting in his office. They murdered 5 of my children in 2 states on the very same day I sat in L. Brooks Patterson's office. You got this
Yeah.
picture?
Oh yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
not a single murder in the news.
Hmm.
No obituaries, no murders. And they've covered me up like this for over 70 years now.
Right.
So I'm going to end this here. You got anything to add? Did I miss anything?
Well, I've seen all your documents, so I know all that's legit and everything. You're not making up anything, you know. So if it's blurry for somebody watching this and they can't see it, I have seen those. So they're all real. You know, he's sent them to me on the computer and everything else. A lot of them are in the book that we're making. Um, Also, if the information came too fast for some of you listening, understand that you know, I'm a pretty normal guy, just like most of you listening, and I understand every last thing he said crystal clear because I've taken the time to learn it, study it, and understand it. Most of us in our situation don't have the opportunity to know how the world really works and runs at that level, and so because of just a complete ignorance of how the world works, we tend to just dismiss things. And I urge people listening not to do that, but to take the necessary time to learn things in a part of how the universe works that you just don't understand yet. And I say the universe, just how the world, how the government, how movies and music and publishing and all this works. Most of us just have no even beginning clue of how this stuff works. But
They
take the
murder.
time
They
and it'll all
murder.
make sense.
The people at the top murder for money. And they've murdered
Yeah.
my entire family 5 times for patents, trademarks, and money and property.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the Clinton family, Greg, remember when Clinton was stealing enriched uranium and selling it over in Russia?
Yeah. From Oak Ridge. And they made the
In
Oak Ridge
Ukraine?
boys to cover that up. Yeah.
Yeah, and remember, she was stealing it off a property my family owned in Washington State, wasn't she?
Yeah. 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 From the big plant there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my family. The streets are named after my family who made
Right.
Hollywood.
Yeah. Gardner and Fuller and all
So,
them
so
named under the
Clinton,
Hollywood sign.
The Clinton family murdered my mother's entire family, blew them up at church in their car, ran them up. Then the kids they missed, they went and ran them over with semis. And this was 30 years before I was born. The Clinton family did this. And they stole the enriched uranium after streets named after my family members who created America. I wanted to leave it with that. Clinton is a bigger criminal than Trump.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And they're
And
hiding
Trump's
the
quite a
murders.
criminal, so it's
They're
hard to
hiding
imagine.
the murders of little kids in my life, and not 1 or 2. They murdered 5 in 2017 on the same day in 2 states. And there was the Duncan kids, which was 5 kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was the Oakland County child killings. Then there was my twin who was murdered. Barr, Graham, Trump, Garland. I grew up with all these people, and they're all hiding my truth about killing kids in Oakland County for money. All of
Mm-hmm.
them.
Mm-hmm.
Barr, Trump, Clinton, Obama, the Queen of London, Epstein, all of them are hiding my truth of who really killed Kennedy, who
Mm-hmm.
really killed Hoffa, and why 9/11 really happened. My
Right.
civil rights case against the Groves family was in the office they blew up at on 9/11. And there isn't a person on earth who saw a plane hit that building.
Right.
A plane never hit it.
Exactly. And that's
Complete lie.
extremely obvious.
Everything they and then what did they do? They buried me murdered two or more of my wives on the Manning Civil War Ranch, the Battle of Blue Spring, with Tom Garrett, CBS, and Walters. They actually screamed over the phone slatery over Walter's phone as they cut my wife's ears off in a hospital. And then they slit her throat. And they did that on the Walters family phone. And that's where Major Tom Garrett works. And Major Tom Garrett, that he spent the next month destroying my business on eBay.
That's Barbara Walters, both of them from CBS, right?
So after they murdered my attorney, so I couldn't hire another attorney. And they did this to me for 2 years. And then when I hired another attorney, they murdered the judge.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Greg, I had a judge murdered at Selfridge with my 7-year-old daughter's doctor.
Yeah.
Before Cheney recalled the National Guard. And I knew the pilots at the National Guard. My friend, Sky, I'll call him, was a pilot at the National Guard over New York. When Cheney recalled them after they murdered my judge and a doctor at Selfridge Air National Guard.
Yeah.
So they've completely covered all this up in the media, and they call dismembered bodies. They'll say it's suicide or natural causes. And
all of them. Yeah, I know.
All my wives are murdered on holidays and dismembered.
But it's all coincidence and natural causes. Yeah.
Right.
And
I'm never allowed an obituary, and there's never any news. And on the full moon, we're going to talk about Senator Coon's family and how they hid with Alex Jones my wife's murder report in the news, in the Greenville Sun, and in the Johnson City Press.
Does this tie in with Cotton?
Yeah, Cotton and Osborne, they stole my Kennedy letters when I first moved to Tennessee.
Right. I was thinking it tied in with Cotton because he's been in the news a lot lately.
Yeah, Coons, Cotton, Osborne, all of them. Cotton is married to Osborne. Osborne is the governor's family that kidnapped me at 4 and beat my twin to death. This is who's running the country, and they're all criminals, all of them. And why don't they ever take me to court? All they do is they disappear my truthful videos. Rupert Murdoch in London copyrights my truthful videos and disappears them.
Right.
So, you know, there's no music in this, and we didn't use anything that I'm not allowed to use.
That's right.
It's just you and me talking. And Rupert Murdoch doesn't own this.
That's right.
You and I do. I'm real tired of this. This country sold out to the London throne when they murdered.
And it will stay so until people understand this.
Yeah, when they murdered Lincoln, that's what was going on. The carpetbaggers. That was all.
Right.
That was all the London throne, Greg.
Yes.
And Americans they've murdered so many innocent people in wars, they don't want to admit the truth. And then 2,500 corporations employing almost 1 million people stole my trademark all over the globe. They don't want to admit they raised their families, bought food, bought their homes, bought their properties, and raised their kids on my stolen cash.
Right.
And this is what's really going on all over the globe. All over the globe. And, you know, Washington handed my family his sword before we were a country.
Yeah.
You worked in that museum, didn't you?
Volunteer, yeah.
And my family members are all over that cemetery, correct?
Oh, yeah.
There's no line.
So if you're hearing this video, go back through some of my videos so you can see those.
I've got 200 videos and nobody watches them, Greg. It's because all of them stole my life.
Right.
And they're still actively stealing my life. I invented the word bottom line. I trademarked it with Weiner and Associates. Weiner went to New York and him and 2 other attorneys stole my trademark, made
Yeah.
it to California bar exam, and for 55 years, every lawyer in America has studied out of my stolen
And
trade.
now you can't watch TV 5 minutes without hearing it.
Right. To pass the bar exam.
Mm-hmm.
Every lawyer in this country and many on earth have studied out of my stolen trademark to pass the bar exam. And I grew up next door to Roseanne Barr
Right.
and Kathy O'Brien. And Jimmy Hoffa is my family member.
The MK Ultra lady, Kathy O'Brien. Yeah.
I was arrested and detained in my driveway in Troy, Michigan, not even 5 hours after Hoffa disappeared. Getting out of my work truck, I drove truck,
Mm-hmm.
and I was in his union for one day when they murdered him. And my mother-in-law was with him at the Sly Fox when he disappeared. And they already had a hole dug for him. And I was introduced to Whitey 2 months prior. Whitey sold me a car.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to junk it because it broke down leaving his parking lot. And all of this was done on purpose so they could murder my family member, Hoffa,
Mm-hmm.
after stealing my trademark all over the globe. They stole a federal license, a federal IRS license, an ASCAP federal license. They stole my FCC licenses. I had first, second, and third FCC licenses. I could hang a license in a TV studio.
Mm-hmm.
You understand this, Greg? They stole all of these things from me before I turned 18.
Yeah, I know it.
And then
Yeah.
they murdered Hoffa and tried to tell me I did it. And I'm not in a single book or movie, but the people who murdered him have gotten away with this
Sure did.
since 75.
Mm-hmm.
And then they murdered 4 of my wives. And none of it's in the news. None of it. My wife Victoria, her ears were cut off. My wife Nancy, her legs were cut off.
But the results of what they've done are conspicuous and being played every day and are real obvious.
Yeah, to you, because you took the time to look into what I told you.
Right.
People should watch these videos and believe what I'm saying, and then they'll see it too.
Yes.
And Denzel Washington already warned me in his last movie the entire mafia is going to come and try to kill me. And
I saw the trailer yesterday.
Yeah, that's nothing new to me, Greg. And then, I wrote this song about his family from scratch. That's Thionetta Washington's song.
Yeah.
I wrote it from scratch, Greg,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm a musician. I was a composer at ASCAP before I was a publisher. I was a writer, composer.
Mm-hmm.
You
You're right.
got that picture?
Yeah.
Then I became a publisher. And I was working with the Kennedy family to change the Berne Convention because people like Fox, cable TV weren't paying people like Bob Seger and Dolly Parton a royalty. And none of those people even attempt to help me. And every word I'm saying is truth. I live next door to Dolly Parton's father in Tennessee. I live next door to Burt Reynolds in Florida. And I lived at Hemingway's house
Yeah.
in Key West.
Mm-hmm. And Congress even knew you were right and eventually passed what you wanted.
Yeah, I got the law passed. That's why Dolly Parton gets a check. I'm well
Right.
aware of that, but they won't help me. Neither will Ted Nugent. Neither will Bob Seger. Bob Seger wrote the Long Twin Silver Line as I bought a house for my parents in Sterling Heights.
Mm-hmm.
I worked with his entire band at ED&C in Troy, Michigan. I performed at Mustang Acres in Brighton, just like he did. I became a publisher.
Yeah.
And they won't help me after I'm the guy that got them royalties from airlines and cable TV with Ted Kennedy. They won't help me, as they stole my life everywhere on earth. And then, as they stole my life, they murdered my wives. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, 4 times on holidays with my children. My life is unbelievable, and it's all truth. There's nobody I would vote for running to be president. Christie family stole my inheritance before he became governor of New Jersey.
Yeah.
George Knapp from Michigan, and who lives in Nevada, he wouldn't write my wife's story about being murdered. And Frank Sinatra is my family member. He said it doesn't have anything to do with Nevada. Oh, and my family wrote the songs Elvis sings in Nevada and made movies in Nevada, as my aunt Gardner was married to Rooney and Sinatra in Nevada.
Even when he tries to be willingly ignorant, he does a
and
really
and
bad
and
job of it.
and then the Knapp family went to school with me in Warren, Michigan, Greg.
Yeah.
I just found that out about a month ago. I was looking through the yearbook.
Not surprised. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they give you the fake diary as they murdered my family member Admiral Byrd.
Right.
And then
I mean, it makes perfect sense because
and then
that's
they
where Coast to
replaced
Coast
me.
came
They
from.
replaced me with Laura Eisenhower when I tried to get my story told on Coast to Coast.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah. Yeah.
You knew me then.
Mm-hmm.
And Greg, I don't drink, do I?
You don't drink at all? No.
I don't do drugs either, do I?
No, you don't do drug. You don't even take aspirin when you have a headache.
No, I don't do anything.
I don't drink or do drugs, but I do take an aspirin when I have a headache.
I've drank water all my life. I don't do
Yeah.
anything.
Right.
I'm gonna let you go. Have a good day.
Well, have a good night.
I'll put this up on YouTube. Let's see how long it takes them to take it down. Bye.
Bye.